at a full introductory step about breast cancer 101. When you guys finish this podcast episode, you guys will know everything about breast cancer. For the most part, we're not doctors,
and we're men.
And we're men. But not only that, but this is a rabbit hole. There's so much information online. We try to just condense it to the best possible form so you kind of know your way around or educate your family. So we go into the grading of breast cancer, and grading happens from 1 to 3, one being the least severe, 3 being the worst, just like stages. And grading talks about, it studies the cell. It studies how abnormal it is from a regular cell and how quickly it's growing. It gets very complicated the way they grade it. There's other DNA sequencing that I don't want to even touch about. But basically, 1 is slow growing. It looks pretty normal. Then it goes into 2 and 3, which is fast growing. And that's how they stage the breast cancer cells on top of staging the cancer on where it is on the body.
Yeah, so there's grading and staging, right?
Yes.
So grading just basically checks for how abnormal the cell looks.
Yes.
Right. So like you said, grade 1 will be, they're normal, but they're kind of growing slowly, but they're still growing quicker than normal, right?
Yes.
And then stage 2 would be, they look less normal, but they're still kind of normal, but they replicate even quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And stage 3 will probably be the worst out of all the 3 stages, right? Yeah. Where the cells look abnormal and they grow abnormally.
Yeah, so when it comes to grading, it's just looking at the individual cell itself and understanding how it's being replicated. And then we get into staging, and staging is basically the size of the cancer, the lymph nodes that are affected, and where it's spreading to the body. And that's the one that's more people hear about, that are understanding what's going on and how bad is your breast cancer.
Yeah, when I looked at the staging process, it's so confusing to look at, where it's like there's like stage 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then there's like A, B, C, where it's like there's so much going on, and but this is staged by actually people that work with cancer.
Yeah.
These doctors know what they're talking about, and this is how to stage it.
So this might be a little bit dry because it's just literally giving you numbers, but I'm going to try to condense it pretty quick here.
Very interesting, though.
Yeah. So we have stage 1, and stage 1 is basically the cancer is not spread anywhere. It hasn't hit the lymph nodes. So basically, you have a tumor that's 2 centimeters or smaller, and it's around the breast area. Sometimes there's a few cancer cells that are found in lymph, but then the lymph nodes aren't exactly affected. So that's stage 1A and then 1B. So you might have either or stages. And if your lymph nodes have a little bit of cancer in them, it's called a micrometastasis. So the lymph node's not actually fully exposed to cancer. You could probably do radiation or something to that. Then we get into stage 2, which is also 2A and 2B. And with this is, you could either have a cancer cell, or tumor, I should say, that's 2 centimeters or smaller, that's found in 1 to 3 lymph nodes. So now, if you're watching on YouTube, you have lymph nodes. And as you know, that's that transport system. And you have different little nodes of these lymph that travel everywhere. So the tumor took itself from the breast and went into the lymph nodes. And I don't know how many lymph nodes there is in the armpit. It'd be good to research. Yeah. But anyways.
Like 4 or 6, maybe more.
So 1 to 3 lymph nodes are affected, and the growth is 2 centimeters or smaller. But then if you go into 2B, it could be larger than 2 centimeters, but no more than 5, and it's found to 1 to 3 lymph nodes. So that's why it's a little bit tricky. So the tumor is basically 2 to 5, and it's either affected 1 to 3, or it's affected all 4. Okay. So it's just very complicated.
Yeah, we have it all right now in the show notes, guys, if you want to take a look at it.
Yeah, so if you want to go into a very in-depth way of looking at this instead of us talking about it, you could look at our show notes, which is going to be linked up, and you could read about it. So stage 3 is a little bit more confusing because it goes into 3A, 3B, 3C. Of course. I'll just make it very simple. Basically, your cancer in stage 3 is up to 5 centimeters or usually larger. And it just gets broken down into lymph nodes. It could be affected up to 3. It could be 4 to 9. But usually 4 to 9 lymph nodes and greater than 5 centimeter, that's the rule of thumb. And then if you go into 3B, it's usually the same, but you might have cancer in the chest wall. And you could have up to 9 lymph nodes affected. and it could be any size. So that's 3B. And then 3C is basically there's 10 lymph nodes that are affected with any kind of cancer size.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes they stage it ABC based on how many lymph nodes are affected.
Okay.
And stage 4 is very simple. It could be any size. It could be any amounts of lymph nodes affected. The biggest key here is that the cancer is metastasized. So what that means is the cancer went from the breast to the lymph nodes, and it took this superhighway that our body has, and it found the cancer is found somewhere else in the body, and it could travel anywhere. And we call it METs in like nursing. And if you do a CT scan, you could have METs to the liver, the lungs, different areas of the body. And that's where it's very hard to control because now you're fighting cancer on a systemic level. And that's why preventive medicine is so important, to find out what's going on earlier before we reach that stage. And it's usually has a high mortality rate.
Yeah, and it's very scary because sometimes you pinpoint what the second or third organ that's affected, and you could go into remission. Like this is treatable and is manageable, but the fact that it metastasized, it means that it could still be anywhere. So just because you got it out of the breast, got it out of the liver, and you got it out of your spleen, and you've been in remission for 2 years, the fact that it metastasized, it could be anywhere else in hiding, and you can't really tell. You can't track until another tumor grows, and you're just like shit. Yeah, we're back at it.
Like I know my friend's dad is battling cancer, and long story short is he has abnormal growth around his neck area, but we don't know where the cancer spread from. So we could be treating cancer in a certain body part, but the doctors aren't aware of where else this cancer can be. And that's what makes it so hard, because you're basically playing hide and go seek with the cancer.